Dear chess fans, I'm Tushar from Chess by Johnson. Today we're going to talk about the English Opening. So without any further delay, let's get right into the video. On c4. And a common question that might come across your mind is that why should you play this opening? Because it cuts down familiarity for your opponent by a lot. Your opponent is probably expecting e4 or d4 and you just straight up play c4. So your opponent may not know how to respond to this opening, and by knowing better theory, you can obviously get a good position from the opening. By playing c4, you control the key d5 square in the center. So your opponent cannot just push d5. And if he decides to play d5 and go for the Anglo-Scandinavian defense, you can just take and your opponent loses a center pawn for a flank pawn. Your opponent plays something like e5. If you look at this carefully, it's just Sicilian defense from the white side and you have an extra move in. So you can channel your Sicilian ideas in this opening. And don't worry, this opening has been played by top super GMs and world champions. So you have plenty of resources about this opening. So you can definitely punish your opponent with your theoretical ideas. So this opening is definitely worth a go. And if you're confused about what Sicilian defense is, a video about the Sicilian defense is going to come out in this channel really soon. So keep an eye on this channel. Let's talk about some offbeat responses to this opening. So after you play c4, black may opt to play the Scandinavian defense. Since black is playing it against the English opening, it's known as the Anglo-Scandinavian defense. So after black plays d5, you just take the pawn. And notice this time we are using a flank pawn to take a center pawn. So we have two center pawns where white has only one center pawn. So we can actually get a pretty good advantage in the center and we can control the center throughout the game and get a good position overall. And now black can obviously consider the English opening and play it as the queen's pawn opening. So after c4, black can definitely play knight f6. So after this, there are a lot of ways black can play this. You know, they can go for the King's Indian setup, they can go for the Nimzo Indian setup. And after this knight f6 move, you just simply develop your knight. And if you think that your opponent is trying to play the Grundfeld against you, you can definitely play the move e4. It prevents black from playing the move d5. After c4, another response you might see from black is the Caro-Kann. Yes, black can obviously play the Caro-Kann against the English. So after c4, black just simply plays c6, preparing c5, d5, preparing d5, I beg your pardon, preparing d5. So if you play a move like knight c3 and black plays this, you can definitely take the pawn. And after you exchange it, you enter territory where this is not an English opening setup. It becomes Slav defense exchange variation. If you don't like this transition into Slav defense, you can obviously push the pawn and go for the advanced variation. So after this, you can just push. And when black prepares for the Caro-Kann defense by playing c6, you just play d4 so that you can push the pawn and defend it as well. Now what you might notice is black actually has a pawn break on b6. So if he pushes the pawn, don't take it. Just reinforce the structure by playing b4. And since your pawns are all fighting for the dominance on the dark squares, try to trade this dark square bishop up and avoid trading the light square bishop. Well, since you're halfway through this video, if you're liking our content, a sub to our channel would be awesome. e5, both sides develop all their knights. And after this point, you can actually play what you wish. You can just expand in the center or you can go for g3, bishop g2 and fianchetto the bishop. A game played between Mikhail Tal and Mikhail Botvinnik in the 1960s World Chess Championship, you can see that Mikhail Botvinnik plays c4 and Mikhail Tal responds knight f6. And after this, you might want to play the queenside knight, knight c3. But instead, Mikhail Botvinnik plays knight f3. What this move does is it prevents e5. So a lot of players does this. They first develop their knight and then go for the pawn push in the center. So they delay the e5 push. And after this move, Tal can no longer push his pawn on the e5 square, and he ends up playing the King's Indian setup in this match. Alright, so now let's talk about the symmetrical English. So after c4, black plays c5, copying you. And after this move, you can actually play the Botvinnik setup against black. So after you develop your queenside knight, black will mostly do the same. Then you can go for e5. And then black just simply develops his pieces. And remember, the e4 pawn is supported by the knight. So after this, you can obviously solidify the center by playing d3. And you can obviously fiancate your kingside bishop, then develop the knight or reroute it to e2, and the dark squared bishop is ready to be developed. So it can be a handy solution. Where Mikhail Tal plays c4, and a chess player better known as the Yugoslavic Tal played c5. After this, Mikhail Tal, obviously, he played knight c3, and his opponent played knight c6, and he, instead of going for any kingside development or pawn pushes, he just played b3, getting ready to fiancate with the bishop. Then he just fiancates the bishop. So he goes for early queenside development. So you can obviously play this line too. After c4, black responds with e5. It's just Sicilian defense from the white side. So after this move, you can play knight c3, black typical response knight f6. And after this, you have a lot of ways to set up this opening. You can go for g3, bishop g2, and play e3, preparing that pawn on d2 to push forward. And you can route your knight to e2. Your bishop has a long diagonal. So this piece is really strong right now. In the future, in the middle game, you might see that bishop comes into the h3 square to trade this bishop up, because this piece is so powerful, and normally that bishop is supported by the queen. So after castling, it might be a great idea to put the rook on the e file to prevent black from trading this bishop up. You might just move your bishop back to h1. You should keep this piece. You must exchange your bad pieces with your opponent's good pieces. But if you exchange your strong piece with opponent's bad piece, that's just losing for you. So here you play c4, e5, knight c3, knight f6, and you play d3. And after this move, the d5 pawn comes in like the opening Sicilian. You take, knight takes back. Now you again attack that pawn on the e5. Then black develops his knight on the c6 square. And this time your response is to play a3. Why? It might seem like it isn't a good move. It is not a good development move. You should develop your pieces first. So it doesn't seem like a lot. But this move prevents both of the knights and the dark square bishop to come to b4, because that square is now protected by this pawn. It's like the reverse Najdorf setup, but I like this setup, so I thought I would talk about it. And after this, black can just simply develop one of his bishops. You can go and push this pawn. And remember, if black mistakenly plays f5, you have this e5. I mean, if black plays bishop f5. you have e5, forking and winning material. So keep an eye on that. So you can play e4 anytime you want, or you can go for the dragon setup. It's not dragon since you have played a3, but you can just flank your bishop by playing g3, bishop g2. So long. See you guys in the next video. Until then, stay hungry, stay foolish.